The opinions expressed in the podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the ASD Shouldn't Drink podcast.
Welcome. You are now listening to the ASD Andre Shouldn't Drink podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the ASD Andre Shouldn't Drink podcast. Today's guest is a gentleman by the name of Chile de Castro. Just a quick disclaimer for this podcast episode. We recorded this episode on September 9th of 2021. Since then, there has been quite a bit of controversy regarding Chile and other popular social media influencers / activists. Since this podcast episode was recorded long before any of these controversies became public, that is the reason why I do not ask Chile anything regarding those controversies. Now, with that disclaimer out of the way, I'd like to introduce to you all Chile de Castro. Chile is a self-taught legal scholar and constitutional law expert. When you look across all of his social media accounts, his message is very clear. He is determined to overturn Terry v. Ohio. As a victim of 2 no-knock raids by police, he knows firsthand the overwhelming power that police have in America today. In today's podcast episode, we talk about how policing in America is, quote, designed to harass us and put us in a dungeon, end quote. We talk about how we need a checks and balance system on the police. We talk about Chile's experience when he got no-knock raided twice. We talk about Illinois v. Gates. We talk about reasonable articulable suspicion. We talk about probable cause. We talk about how Chile's activism has cost him relationships with friends and family. We talk about the common practice of putting individuals on probation. We talk about Chile's documentary, which focuses on the importance of overturning Terry v. Ohio. We talk about Chile's famous timeline wall that he put together documenting the history of policing in America. We talk about how power corrupts. We talk about the importance of having a third-party organization that investigates the police. We talk about the Mullen Commission. We talk about Chile's views on defunding the police and the misconception of what the term defunding actually means. We talk about whether politics plays a role in policing in America. We talk about how, in Chile's words, how the entire policing system was created to terrorize black people. We talk about the reason why Chile started a TikTok account. We talk about the First Amendment auditing community. And finally, we talk about his favorite First Amendment auditor. Guys, I know this was a very lengthy intro to this podcast episode, but I do want to mention one of the controversies that Chile de Castro is facing, and that is he's being accused of being a racist. Now, if I was being accused of being a racist, I would want my colleagues that know me well to speak up on my behalf. With that said, of all the controversies Chile is facing at the moment, I do not believe Chile de Castro is a racist. He's a very passionate individual and someone who I think really wants to have a positive impact in this world. I admire his courage to speak his mind, and I wish him nothing but the best. With all of that said, let's get right into this podcast episode. Welcome, Chile de Castro. You also have a YouTube channel by the name of Delete Laws with Z. Welcome to the ASD Andre Shouldn't Drink podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate you having me. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So, Chile, if you could please, for the audience, just let them know what is it that you're involved in a lot of activism and you're very, very popular on social media. What exactly do you do?
Well, it's nice to meet all your audience. I've been following you for a long time before we actually met a few months ago, before I came out of the woods here in the darkness. Well, my main mission and the thing that I've been able to pinpoint through my study of history, through my timeline here, is I've been able to pinpoint the tip of the spear that allows the interaction between police and citizens to happen. And I found that tip of the spear. So in my perspective now, since you and I both, I'm sitting here with you right now, 20 years more, I've been studying policing and exactly how we got to this horrific place where now, because everybody is recording police, because everybody's now recording cops, because it's like, what is this organization? People are dying. Finally, the media is paying attention. And now what we're seeing, and I just saw a couple videos this morning that I downloaded immediately so I can, right? What I saw this morning is that police are intended to harass us and to try to get money out of us, and their job is to arrest us and put us in a dungeon. I just did an interview with Dominic Izzo, retired police officer, and it was hard to do the interview because Dominic is still stuck in his authoritarian, I wear the boots and these boots are made for stomping on your skull kind of mentality.
So just to give us some context, Dominic Izzo, that's what his name is, correct?
Yeah, I just interviewed Dominic Izzo. He's a cop out of Chicago, Milwaukee area, and he's retired. He's only been retired for a couple of years. And so what we're seeing now is we're seeing police officers retire, and then when they sit back and they're no longer going to work and putting on their death gear, when they look out over the canvas of the landscape that is America, what we're seeing is that police, their job is to harass us and arrest us. And the problem with your job, whatever what Andre does, is you're only going to affect me a little bit. If right now you and I have a crappy interview and you say that Chili, he's terrible, and I say that Andre, he's awful, and we have this terrible thing, we feel bad the rest of the day. You know, it's a bad feeling. I lost a friend. I don't feel good. You know, if a cop decides that he's having a bad day and he's going to arrest you, that affects you for years, maybe the rest of your life. My arrest, my no-knock raid, has affected me for the rest of my life. Not just that I have PTSD and I've gone, OCD on this wall. We're just meeting. I came out of the darkness 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I came out of the darkness on Facebook and I said, the police in this country have to change. We have a horrifically bad. I made this video called the AAO, the Authority Accountability Office. And my mom was upset and everybody was upset. And a lot of family and friends at that point disowned me and said, I want nothing to do with this guy. So, we're at a tipping point, and that's why I'm happy that there's guys like you who are going out and exposing that we need a checks and balances system on police. If you don't know we need a checks and balances on police, that's the video I'm gearing up to produce next. I've downloaded 20 videos where cops are just walking up to people, either trying to intimidate them, harass them, scare them, put them in handcuffs, hurt them, and there's no purpose of it happening. There's no reason for it to happen. I just watched a video where these two cops backed up and pointed their cars at this guy, and he's like, what's going on? They don't have their lights on. And it's black, and it's raining outside, pitch black, and it's raining. They're in a parking lot that's not very well lit. The guy gets out of his car. He's like, what do you guys want? I'm like, oh, nothing. You're free to go. It's just like a horror movie. It's a horror movie. The small town sheriff in your town is sitting behind you in a parking lot, lights on, but not the emergency lights on. The other cop pulls in. They got two lights staring at you. What kind of country are we living in? And there's no checks and balances. I could just talk forever. It just pisses me off. Like, why don't we just install a checks and balances system? Because this one is not working. I mean, pretty clear.
I know you're extremely, all of your content online, because you produce content almost daily, I would say, and you go live daily. And you've had, if it wasn't for TikTok taking down several of your accounts, you'd have well over hundreds of thousands of followers. So you are popular and you do produce a lot of content. Now, I wanted to ask you, since you're so passionate about this, and you briefly spoke about it just now, that something had happened to you. And I always ask that to activists. A lot of times what I've seen is people become activists because of a bad interaction that they had with a police officer. They become police accountability activists, I want to say. What was your story? What was the moment where you were like, this system is broken and I need to do something about it, to, basically take the law into your own hands and do what you do today, which is educate the public on their rights?
When I was no-knock raided in 2001 and they came into my house, the first time, there's a few different kinds of raids they can do on your home. There is the knock, announce, and beat your door down. They don't need a warrant at all. I can look at you and go, I think you're a drug dealer. And then I can decide that Andre's a drug dealer. I could tell a fellow cop he's a drug dealer. The other cop can look at you and go, yep, he's a drug dealer. And then the cops can go, well, we are here to prevent crime. So we are men of reasonable, what do they call these? I'm a man of reasonable caution. This is Briengar versus United States, 1949. A man of reasonable caution. So I look at you, look at Andre, I see him with this chilly guy, and I think they're drug dealers. So I can go over now, knock, wait 15 seconds, police, 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 and then just beat your door down. So the first time the cops came to my house in 2001, I was in the bathtub, and I heard a beating, a booming sensation underneath the water, because I was under the water in the tub. It's like something out of a movie scene. You know, you go underwater, you hear booming, you sit up, there's no booming. I go back underwater, I hear booming. I sit back up, there's no booming. The third time I came back up, there was no more booming. But then there was a man standing over the top of me in the bathtub with a gun at my head. And, you know,
I was butt naked in the tub.
Oh, completely naked from top to bottom. And, you know, you think that you're going to have some response that is going to be something pithy or smart, or you think you're going to say something that's going to, you don't though. When there's a guy standing over the top of you and he's got a gun to your head, my responses was, what the fuck are you doing here? I didn't see the badge around his neck. I just saw some guy with a gun, so I thought I was going to be shot in the head. I didn't respond at all how I thought I would respond. But that moment of him turning to the hallway and pointing the gun at my head, I'm in the bathtub naked, that moment for me played out in my head, you know, 1,000 times over the past 20 years. Because I thought in those moments that I had, that someone was just going to kill me, because the guy wasn't wearing a uniform. He was wearing a pair of blue jeans and a t-shirt. And so then they start screaming at me. So then they drag me out of the tub completely naked, drag me out by my wrists like I'm some sort of threat, like I've got a secret underwater cannon in the bathtub. And then they slide me out and cover me with a robe and put me in handcuffs, and then put the robe over my shoulders without tying it. So I'm standing there with the robe with 5 guys in my house who are screaming shit at me, and my dinglings hanging out the front of a robe that's not tied, with my hands tied behind my back. And I'm like, can you tie my robe, guys? Can you tie my robe? Can you tie my robe? I mean, I don't want to stand here with my privates hanging out. You know, can you tie my robe up? They let me sit in cuffs like that with my nakedness for a good 5 minutes. For a good 5 minutes, where there was 5 guys going on, and none of them had uniforms on. So it was Chief of Police Michael Moore, current LAPD Chief of Police. 20 years ago, he was a detective. And
wow.
And so I have no idea what's going on. I have no clue why these people are in my house. I have not created any victims. I haven't been in a fist fight with someone's brother and then he could try to get revenge or something like that. You know, I really only have at that time one adversary or 2 adversaries who I think could do something that would be, you know, untold. But it doesn't even ring in my head that it could be some sort of person who's reporting false information. So that was my first study, was to find out how someone could report false information and then the police could kick your door down. And that's how I got to Terry v. Ohio from the 1983 case of Illinois versus Gates. So the reason the police can kick your door down is because Illinois versus Gates. It has to do with confidential information, specifically Illinois versus Gates does. It's an extension of Terry v. Ohio. Remember, we used to have a standard of probable cause. You could only be arrested if there was probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. Our Bill of Rights is dead, completely and utterly dead. There are cops on YouTube making videos called building reasonable, articulable suspicion. So in other words, we've gone from, if you see someone committing a crime and it's supported by oath of the victim, then you can arrest them and you can issue a warrant. Now, police are being trained to build reasonable, articulable suspicion. So if you can just picture that in a cartoon, cops are investigating you to see if there's something they can be reasonably suspicious about you. And that creates a total fucked up society. totally fucked up society.
It's kind of like pretextual stops, basically, is the right?
Because of Terry v. Ohio. So let me just put a cap on this. So if anybody was listening and they didn't really understand what I meant, Illinois versus Gates is a 1983 case.
Mm-hmm.
Before 1968, police, for them to get a warrant for you, to arrest you and put you in handcuffs, before 1968, there had to be probable cause established. Now, the Supreme Court, if you listen to the Supreme Court cases, I've listened to most of them, you're going to hear the Supreme Court over the years bastardize what probable cause is. All the way when we get to Tennessee versus Garner, Wilson versus Arkansas, 85-95, the Supreme Court personnel, because you certainly wouldn't call those people justices, the Supreme Court personnel are like, probable cause is a loose term. Literally, it says that. Probable cause is a loose term defining the interactions between police. No, it's not. Probable cause in the Fourth Amendment is where you've broken the law, supported by oath or affirmation. Terry v. Ohio takes the place of the Fourth Amendment. It completely takes, and that's why I built the wall. That's why I'm doing this interview with you, hoping, praying someone actually listens and goes, oh, you mean it used to be you had to break the law, and then in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement, they changed the rules of engagement for police because they wanted to kill and arrest all the Black Panthers? Yes, that's exactly correct. The Supreme Court changed our entire Constitution so that Terry v. Ohio gives police the right to run up and grab you. And once they grab you, they grab me, and I'm going to resist that. I don't let anybody grab me. And that's a natural reaction from a human being when some stranger grabs you. I don't give a shit if you have a badge on or not. To me, you're a garbage man. I don't know who you are. And so we've created this idea that if you have absolutely no skills, you have no technical skills, you have no commercial skills, you have no trade skills. You can't be a plumber, you can't be a producer, you can't create CAD images, you can't do Excel spreadsheets. If you have no skills, you can be a police officer in America. If you're willing to sign up to hurt people, and you're willing to follow orders, and you're willing to put these shackles on individuals and say that it's for your safety, and drop them off at a dungeon and say that I have a right to go home to my family after you dropped them off at a dungeon, then you literally are the problem with our country. And when I talk about cops, people are like, oh, you're negative Nancy, you're these things. When you see a cop, when I interviewed Dominic Izzo the other day, I was literally talking to the devil. Dominic Izzo claims to be a big Christian, and I got nothing negative to say about our interview or him necessarily, but police in our country are literally the devil. When you drive down the road, the only person you fear that you can't deal with is a cop. So in my case, Illinois versus Gates, after Terry v. Ohio in 68, they then superseded the previous Spinelli-Aguilar test from 1967 that said that you had to have a two-prong effect when you got confidential information. So someone told the police, Chief of Police Michael Moore, that I was a drug dealer. It wasn't true at all. But it doesn't matter, because then the Aguilar-Spinelli test of 67 said that, or it could have been 69. I'm dyslexic, so my years kind of get messed up sometimes. 67 or 69 right there. And so the Aguilar-Spinelli test from Spinelli versus United States said that if a police officer gets confidential information from you, well, we're both YouTube people. We're both influencers. We're both auditors. We're both public figures who talk to the public. And so if Andre calls the police and goes, hey, this guy Chili's a drug dealer, then the Aguilar-Spinelli test said that the police had to investigate both the confidential informant, you, and the information. So that would mean that the cop, you call up and say Chili's a drug dealer. And the best example of this is Tyler Burris. Tyler Burris, B-U-R-R-I-S. Tyler Burris was a gamer. He called the police and said his rival gamer had killed his parents and his brother and stuffed them in a broom closet. The police went over there and murdered the other guy. And then they charged Tyler with murder. Tyler's in prison today for murder. So...
Wait, hold on. Just to do clarification. So there was a gamer, you said Burris? His last
Tyler
name?
Burris. B-U-R-R.
Tyler Burris. And so he called the police against a rival gamer and said that this rival gamer killed his parents. The police arrived there and guns drawn, no knock raid, I'm assuming, and then end up killing him. And because they end up killing him, they go back to the original complainant, which is the gamer, and they arrest him for murder.
Right.
Wow.
No, yeah.
Even though the police officers were the ones that, I mean, yes, of course, he's at fault, but the police officers, right?
Let's take one step back real quick.
Interesting. Wow.
Let's take one step back. The police had reasonable suspicion. That's the Terry v. Ohio new standard, is the police have reasonable suspicion.
Just make a phone call and that's it.
Someone called and said, I'm reasonably suspicious. So Spinelli said they had to investigate Andre because Andre's a YouTuber and Chili does TikTok. So now maybe Andre has ulterior motives. Maybe he wants to bump Chili off of the spectrum. So then the Aguilar-Spinelli test would make the police, or if there was any reasonable officer, which there's no oversight, so there's the biggest problem. It would make them go, oh, these guys are both YouTubers, and he's calling and saying he's a drug dealer. Maybe they have a beef, and then hopefully good sense would take over. That was ended in 1983 with Illinois versus Gates. And what they said was that if someone gives me confidential information, then I can take the totality of the circumstances given to me. So if someone tells me that Andre's a drug dealer, I go to Andre's house, I look outside, people are coming and going. It's the middle of the day. You're not at a job. What do the police always say? What are you doing today? Tuesday afternoon? Well, I'm not being a parasite like you. I'm actually trying to do bigger things, putting bigger things together. And so the police came over to my house, looked at me. I had a Porsche and I had a girlfriend who was a dime piece. And so then he must be a drug dealer. So that was enough right there. They then followed me to MMA practice at a gym called Legends Gym here in Hollywood. Because I fought MMA, after they had kicked my door down for evidence and didn't find any, the statements that I had made to the police, telling them everything I could about any kind of chemical that I was ever associated with in any way, shape, or form, because they told me that kids were dying and that they had kicked down my door because they got information that I had been selling drugs. And I said, whoa, I'm not selling it. I told them everything. I just, 25 years old, full of enthusiasm and energy. My light is still very bright. The negativity and the jade of this earth has not beset on me. I'm still very open, very gregarious.
You didn't know what you know now about police and your rights or anything at that time.
No.
Wow.
No. And as soon as the cops come in and they get off by kicking your door down and acting like they're a grand poobah taking on a guy who doesn't have a gun, like if you're really a man, drop the badge and gun. Fucking let's go, bro. Drop that badge and gun. Let's hit the cage and see how tough you are. In my 20s and 30s, I offered 1,000 cops to meet me in the cage. Never won. And now that I'm in my 40s, now I got to feel like, oh, I'll take you on. Yeah, dude, I'm an old man. Guys in there, look at the guys who retire in the UFC. When do they retire? About 40. Right. All right. And the guys who I trained with as a kid, Guy Metzger, Ken Shamrock, Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, that generation, we're done. We're done. We can't fight anymore. If you watch Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell fight, it was like watching two guys in slow motion. And those guys were tougher than me when we were young.
That was hard to watch, to be honest. I'm a huge fan of them both. So
I trained in Guy Metzger's fight camp to fight Tito Ortiz. I was the wrestler in Guy Metzger's fight camp to fight Tito Ortiz. And when Guy Metzger choked him out with a guillotine, I went nuts. Yeah, because we practiced that so many times.
Wow. Right?
And Guy Metzger taught me a lot of stuff, and he's an amazing human being. I'm so grateful I ever met and I know Guy Metzger.
Have you stayed in touch with him all these years?
We do once in a while. I pop on his Facebook or something like that. But remember, I'm a very polarizing figure. And a lot of people, even friends I've known throughout my lifetime, have very little or nothing to do with me. Because, I mean, look,
do you think that your activism and your presence online has anything to do with why people have distanced themselves or not want to, or you've lost relationships because of it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 100. I mean, I was back in Alaska last summer, where I'm from, and a very close family member of mine said, I don't have any respect for police. None. If you're a cop, I think you're literally the devil. You're the problem of the government. You're the person that they hire, the Neanderthal knuckle dragger, who's going to enforce these bullshit archaic rules that are based on racism and authoritarianism from the 17th and 18th century. And I know that from my study of history. And so you, the knuckle dragger who does this job, as soon as you sign up to be a cop, I think you're the enemy. You're my enemy. You're the enemy of the people. You're the terror in the night. When you drive down the road, cop swoops in behind you, you're scared because there's no one to check and balance that tyrant who has no skills at all and can only pass an academy test and then follow orders and hurt you. But police don't have any skills. They were sold this bag of goods that they join the military, they're going to be a war hero. The old lie we were told in the 70s and 80s. But what they weren't told is that you'll do oil wars, and the wars you'll go to will be for big business and big capital and to spread American imperialism, to steal all the precious metals out of Afghanistan. It has nothing to do with anything else. That's why we're there. And so a lot of my family, because I come from a poor family, half of my cousins signed up to be in the military. Hey man, I was this close to becoming a Navy SEAL, this close. I had been meeting with the recruiters in Washington State. I'd passed all the SEAL tests. It was just a breeze for me when I was in my 20s. And I didn't join because Iraq was an oil war for power and money. It had nothing to do with our freedom. World War II, we fought for freedom. And now since World War II, we have not fought a meaningful war. So these guys get sold a bag of goods that, hey, go over and you're going to be a war hero. And really, most of them sign up for college money. And I call everybody a peon. We're all peons. You are a fucking peon, brother. I'm sorry. And so am I. Unless you make over $1 million a year and you have some sort of effect on the political spectrum, a peon is like a pawn. You don't matter. All the videos you make, Andre, right? How much traction did you get with that Utah video? What happened?
Well, everyone, I guess the attorneys in that case, they all went into hiding.
What was the results? I mean, I'm not hacking your investigative reporting was the best I've seen in years. So I'm not hacking what you did, but what was the results of it? People who watch this who don't know you or I, or maybe they know who you are, everybody saw Andre's video where he exposed the corruption in Utah. It's disgusting, right? And so the reason why nothing happened, and if anything really legitimate does happen, it'll take a very long time. There's no checks and balances system set up on the people who are in power. So that those people who were put in power by just taking a bar exam or signing up to be in the judiciary, there's no checks and balances on those people. And so now if you watch Steve Leto's channel, Leto's Law, he exposes over and over that there are judges all over America who are garbage. But there's no third party to look over judges and to take them off the bench. You did an amazing piece. I was so impressed, dude. I literally watched your piece 2 or 3 times. Nothing happens. There's no checks and balances. There's no checks and balances on power.
And so, that's so true, because people ask me, what can I do? And I said, well, all I can do for you is just spread awareness. That's all I can do, because like you said, there are no third-party organizations that are investigating corruption and misconduct amongst our public officials. There just isn't. And
there's no bureau.
Yeah.
What bureau is that? Remember, the FBI was only built the FBI was only invented in 1924 because the police were so complicit in dealing alcohol in the early 1920s. So by 1924, the president said, screw this. We need an organization that can't be corrupted by alcohol. That's why the FBI was created. And then the FBI, when they couldn't beat alcohol, they just poisoned the bottles and killed people. So there's no checks and balances on the policing apparatuses. There's no checks and balances on the criminal justice system. And that's why I'm here. So I'm standing in a dungeon at 4 o'clock in the morning. The first time was a evidentiary knock. Second time's a no knock. On the way out the door, after the cops treat you like you're a total maggot and that you could be squished or your brain's blown out and it's fine. After they put the handcuffs on you and they're walking around like they got a 10-inch dick, right? Then all of a sudden they're just really nice. Hey, I didn't even know what you did. I just got the warrant dropped in my slot and we're the emergency response team, so we just kicked your door down, came in, grabbed you, but you seem like a nice enough guy. And so every cop who kicked my door down, every one of them, I hope they burn in hell. I hope they burn in hell. I really do. Because you didn't do any good kicking my door down. You didn't make the world a better place. Let's make it the other way. Let's say I was the biggest GHB dealer in all of America. You wouldn't have made any dent on the health crisis that the drug problem causes. You wouldn't have made a dent on criminality. You wouldn't have affected anything better. You guys kicking my door down created the guy sitting here today. And I'm not going to stop till we take half of the funds from cops and we create a third-party organization that films them and gets their body cam footage. We need them to have arresting power and subpoena power. Any third-party agency, and if people come back to me with some stupidity, civilian boards, no offense, but you don't know what you're talking about. Civilian boards are about as good as a left-handed tennis player, right? It's just, I was going to say something else, but what I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to say is that if you don't understand the problem, don't say things to try to address it. Don't come in and chime in, well, I think this. You watch Scalia's interviews on YouTube. I'm not an attorney. I'm halfway through the Federalist Papers right now. I'm probably going to take the bar. I'm thinking about going to Yale. I'm going to apply to Yale possibly. But what I'm saying is, people speak on things and they just say shit that they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how the court systems work. They don't know how the law works. If you speak to the police, they can make up anything they want. Tell the DA. The DA's their buddy. The DA and the cops are the buddies. They're best friends. Every time you see a cop get acquitted, look at the DA. Look at Breonna Taylor. We know that piece of garbage down there, I'm not going to say his name, that piece of garbage down there, he just sloughed it. Were you afraid for your life, officer? I sure was. Great. That's it.
But that's the thing, though. A lot of people focus on the police officers, right? But I think we need to take a shift and start focusing on these prosecutors, like you said, the DAs, these attorneys and stuff, the judges, because these are the people that I think are getting away with the most, especially the DAs. They're the ones that are looking at the evidence, seeing the body cam footage, and yet still going through and trying to prosecute somebody. What are your thoughts on that?
You're preaching to the choir. I have several videos on YouTube. I don't call for one third-party agency. I'm calling for two third-party agencies. And these ideas don't belong to me. They belong to Charles Montesquieu and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the 17th century Enlightenment thinkers who wrote the philosophies that our Bill of Rights and our Constitution is based on. I'm not a genius. I have a great memory. I remember a lot of stuff. But we have to have a checks and balances system like Montesquieu said. And on my videos, and I can just show you guys, right over here, you can see that I'm not kidding. There's 3 buildings there. The reason there's 3 buildings there is because of white fright. We won't be able to get rid of these disgusting police. White fright won't allow it. White fright says, I got to be able to call someone. They're going to come help me. Even though if you call the police, you're calling a huge problem into your life.
This is the thing, though. This is what I find so fascinating. That like you said, these police officers are the ones that create these police accountability activists. They've had such a horrible experience with the system, with the court system, with going to jail from beginning to end, from the first interaction all the way through the whole entire process, that a lot of, like myself, for instance, I've had horrible experiences as well. And so in my mind, I know firsthand what it's like to be in jail. I know firsthand how you're treated. I know firsthand when guns are drawn on you. It's a extremely scary thing. And that's why a lot of these people that fully 100% back the blue, I always wonder, probably you have a family member who's a police officer, but have you ever been arrested? Have you ever been to jail? Have any of these police officers, do they understand what it's like to be in jail? Have they ever themselves ever gone to jail? The other day I interviewed Mr. Checkpoint, and he had that very same point. Yeah, I interviewed him 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, and he said the same thing. I would like to know how many officers have actually been to jail. He says, I actually wish that every officer went to jail just so they understand what they're actually doing to another human being. it's not you're just arresting them and putting them in a cage for 12 hours at a time. I mean, it's damaging to someone's mindset. I mean, it could really. I mean, being there even just for a day alone, even it's just it's not a great experience. And I know it's not supposed to be, but imagine being unlawfully arrested for something and knowing you're not supposed to be there. That's my point, is that you're not supposed to be there, but you're in the situation because of an egotistical police officer who doesn't know the law and doesn't care for another human. And I think that's the most saddest part about all this.
You know, you just said something, and I want to just visit it just for a second. I know we've been on for a long time, but I just want to visit what you just said. So you just said, I know going to jail isn't pleasant and it's not supposed to be. So let's dissect that a little.
I mean, is it supposed to? I mean, I don't know. What other, I mean, I guess for me, is there an example of,
I'm not hacking you. I'm not saying that you're bad, that Andre is bad because he said this. What I'm saying is that you just said the truth. Mm-hmm. You just said the truth of how people think and feel. Is that if you're going to jail, that's not supposed to be a pleasant experience. Right. So the way I became un-Neanderthal, the way I became, against the idea that might is right. I was raised, fighting and fishing and wrestling, and I continued to fight all the way through 25 years old, like full-on fist fight people in MMA practice. And so we have this idea that might is right, and that's perpetuated through television and media. But the truth is, the reason why I'm not a Neanderthal, and people are like, oh, this guy doesn't have a criminal record. The reason I don't have a criminal record is because of enlightenment. The more that I learned, the more philosophy that I read, the more law that I read, the more that my brain expanded with knowledge, my character changed. The guy who before, if someone said something, I'll call you outside and let's have a fist fight. That changed. That changed to, well, why did he say that to me? Why is he saying that? The more information I took in, the more my personality changed. And then by the time I got to the 17th century Enlightenment thinker named John Locke, and he said, show me the character of a man and I'll show you how much education he has. Then I really began to read. Because if my character can change with the more I read. So let's take, for example, someone who gets a DUI or you get a domestic disturbance. You taking that person to a dungeon is going to be detrimental to society because that person isn't going to learn anything. And I'm going to create a skit for this. So take a domestic violence situation. They call and they go over and they say, oh, he hit me. You look at the girl, there's no bruises on her. But she said that you gotta believe her. You have to take her claim seriously. I believe women, when they say something, I think it should be investigated. So now what do? We take the guy to the dungeon because she said that he pushed her. And so there's no bruises, but you know what? Take him to a dungeon. And then when he gets out, there may be a restraining order, there may be a TRO where they can't communicate, can't talk. And so this is going to create a divide. And then the guy's also going through PTSD because he got thrown into a dungeon. If you guys don't know it's a dungeon, you haven't been arrested. It's an absolute dungeon. It really is. So now let's flip that around, right? Let's say that she calls and says he pushed me or he hit me. Okay. Instead of police going out, you have some sort of security there. But now what happens is the guy who would go to a dungeon, we pay to take him to the dungeon. We pay insurance to transport him there. We pay to book him. We pay for a stay. We pay a for-profit prison. And the relationship between him and her is still unknown. We still have no idea what's going on there. Is he silently abusing her, squeezing her arm, twisting it, hurting her, like doing the abusive shit that fucking psychos do, right? Where they squeeze a chick's arm and like hurt her, because that's real. Or did she use the rules and say, he hit me? And so that she can circumvent any kind of responsibility because, he cheated or she cheated and they're having a horrifically bad fight over what happened. So now let me give it to you another way. A man comes out, female comes out, someone with security in case there's violence. We have a security guard there. But now instead of paying to transport that man to a dungeon and take him to a dungeon on the word of someone who says, oh, he pushed me, which is battery. When the counselor comes with the cop, the counselor then takes the guy and says, here's the deal. You have to leave here for the night. So we have a hotel place that we set up over here for you to stay tonight. And now I'm going to sit with you for the rest of the night, and I'm going to talk with you about what happened. And then another counselor sits with her and says, you've called the police. The state's now involved. Tell me what's going on with your boyfriend. Tell me what's going on. And now the same money we spent on locking someone in a dungeon and paying this cop to go sit on his ass and fill out a report when there's a rapist in the alley, now within that evening, and now because you dialed 911, that's 4 counseling sessions that you have to go to. So now the first one-on-one, now those 2 counselors talk, and they're like, you know what? Here's what I think's going on. He's doing that crazy abusive shit, or she's manipulating the system, or they're just fighting, and so they're creating lies about each other so that someone comes in to add assistance. So now the same money we spent to lock him up, the same money we spent, she sits alone all night crying. He went to jail. What happens to her? Play the process out. She cries in her hands. She calls her best friend. This motherfucker grabbed my wrist and squeezed it. I'm so mad, right? She calls everybody. He's in a dungeon. He's thinking all these thoughts. There's no healing going on. And then people are like, why are all these mass shootings? We don't care for people here. Dungeon is the system. Dungeon him. Dungeon her. She called and said he pushed her. Dungeon him. They don't sit down and dig into the minutia and get the feelings out. They just put you in a dungeon. We have a totally backward system.
You're saying, I just want to be clear about this. There should be a mediator that instead of just police just barging in and arresting people, there should be a mediator that helps the situation, better the situation, and that the court system and the jail system currently is, if anything, it's setting up people to fail. Because when you arrest somebody, you can put them on when they go to the judicial system, like you said, go on probation. Like probation, for instance, that's pretty much setting you up to fail. I mean, one ticket, any interaction with any police officer, you're driving down the road, you're speeding, you just violated probation because you had an interaction with police. So it's really, probation is kind of like house arrest. It's don't go out, don't have any interactions with people. And if you do, you could be you could be locked in a dungeon, like you said.
The one time I went out after I got put on probation, I went out, and maybe some of the people here who watch this podcast will remember a very popular influencer on MySpace, a woman that went by the name Forbidden. Maybe you guys, some people will remember her. She was this, super hot, blonde. But needless to say, my girlfriend and I broke up very quickly after the jail thing. So then I was like, all right, well, I should do something. So I took out Forbidden. Her name was Forbidden. She died a short time ago. But I took her out on a date. Not a date, just took her out. I had my cousin in the back. I had my best friend in the other seat, and I'm driving down the road. And Forbidden is this fire bombshell. She's bombshell. So when I passed by this cop, they pulled me over. But I'm on probation. I don't know what that means.
Oh, no.
What that means is, if you're on probation, that as soon as the cops pull you over, they put everybody in your car in handcuffs. I get pulled over. They announced to the car that I'm on. My cousin already knows, but my best friend knows, but Forbidden doesn't know I'm on probation for something I didn't do wrong. And so then they put all my friends in handcuffs. Everybody's in handcuffs on the side of the road. And then they just go through my car and just tear everything out of my car, rip open everything, you name it, back seat, front seat. They take 45 minutes and go through every single piece of paper in my car. Tore it to shreds, dude.
She's probably terrified, I'm assuming.
She's in handcuffs.
Yeah.
We don't see each other again, needless to say. But that process means if you're on probation, then the police now have every right to do anything they want to you. There's no limit to what can happen to you if the cop knows you're on probation. You have no rights at all. You're immediately put in shackles as though you're some sort of demon. They can go through anything of yours. They can take you to jail upon police interaction with you. So I know the rules. So I'm just nice as a church mouse as I'm in fucking handcuffs, dude. And by the way, to this day, from the years of lifting weights I've done, I can't pin my wrists behind my back and have any level of comfort. There's no, even just doing this now, there is no level of comfort. I mean, zero level of comfort. So, we have to change the Terry v. Ohio rule. A cop calls on you, that does not mean police can open an investigation on you. But that's what a 911 call means. And that's what we're seeing now that everybody's reporting cops. Someone called the cops, they come out, I got a call on you. That's a Terry stop.
And that's where I want to shift the rest of our interview for this podcast, because a lot of what you talk about is Terry v. Ohio, the Terry stops, overturned Terry, right, and you talk about that immensely, a lot on Instagram and TikTok, and you've created a movement. You've actually done I think like documentaries as well, correct? And what was their documentary called?
The Terry Era.
The Terry Era. And if you could just explain exactly how, because I remember when you and I first talked ever, you had hit me up you had messaged me on in the DMs on Instagram, and I get a lot just like you do. And for whatever reason, I opened up your message and we began talking, and you gave me a call right then and there. And it was amazing what you were describing to me. You were basically giving me the history of Terry v. Ohio and the importance, and you right here behind you, the famous wall that you have here behind you. If you could please show us all exactly. I mean, this must have taken you a long time to make. It's amazing. It's absolutely beautiful.
It took 7 months. I started in January of 2021 and I finished in June. So it took 7 months of building the wall. That's the prison graph there.
It's amazing.
That's the lynching graph right there. These are the Supreme Court cases that strip our liberty. The green bars are the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And then the repeat of history 100 years later is the 1964-65 Civil Rights Act. And what this just shows is that Terry v. Ohio allows police to kill you. All those people on the wall are there because of Terry v. Ohio. All of them. Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Ronald Green, Chinedu Kobe. Name someone you've heard of, and it's highly likely they were killed because of Terry versus Ohio. Terry v. Ohio is the tip of the spear of how police enter into your world, of how they enter into your world. Every single video I'm watching right now, and I'm going to do a series here, they all start as Terry stops. As soon as a cop says, I'm suspicious of you and you haven't broken the law, that's called probable cause, then that's a Terry stop. 9 out of 10 stops on the street are Terry stops. If a cop calls on you, if someone calls and I say, hey, Andre is littering in the street, right? That's a Terry stop when the cops come up to you and say, hey, are you littering? Because there's no probable cause. Unless they see you throw the item on the ground, then they have no idea if it was you that littered or if there's litter there. So that's a Terry stop. When you end 9 out of 10 police interactions, you save 9 out of 10 lives. So that's
so Terry stop is in the name of officer safety, correct?
But John Terry,
right?
John Terry's right here. This man right here, who will be later he will be committed to an insane asylum. The reason why his face looks like he's a little bit off right here, John Terry, is because he was a mentally ill black man. Later in life, after the Terry case, Terry versus Ohio, his name is John Terry. He was mentally ill. He'll be committed to an insane asylum later in life. So here's the whole Terry v. Ohio case for people who are watching.
Please. Mm-hmm.
John Terry is standing on a street in Cleveland, Ohio, downtown. Euclid Avenue is like Broadway of New York City in 1963. It's Halloween Day, meaning I made a video about this. There's hundreds of people on Euclid Avenue. It's not like someone's obscure. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. Martin McFadden, the cop, sees John Terry and says, I don't like how he looks. Well, if you take a look at someone's face who's mentally ill, who gets committed to an insane asylum, typically they kind of,
right.
They look a little off because they're mentally ill. I'm not making fun of crazy people, but they're mentally ill crazy people. So I don't know how crazy John Terry was. I know he spent his life in an insane asylum after the Terry v. Ohio trial. So Martin McFadden sees John Terry, says, I don't like how he looks, and he runs up and he grabs him. Okay, that right there goes against your Fourth Amendment right to be secure in your person against unreasonable searches and seizures. You just standing on the road goes against your Fourth Amendment right to be secure in your person against unreasonable searches and seizures. That's the whole crux of the Terry v. Ohio case. He's standing there talking to Childress, talking to Katz, his two friends. They're walking back and forth. It sounds like they're doing speed to me. It sounds like they're on meth and they're milling around on Euclid Street. But in 1963, if you're a black person, you're not supposed to be milling around on Euclid. You know that. What are you doing downtown? What are you doing here? You got business down here? Who do you work for? Right? That's the attitude. This is 63, not 64. 64 Civil Rights Act passed. 54 to 64 is a no man's land. Black people have no idea their place in society. And you know who else doesn't? Police. Police have gone from being the lynchmen throughout the 50s to 1954, when now they're supposed to enforce desegregation. The cops don't know who they are. They've been lynchmen, beaters, abusers, absolute tyranny in black communities. Their job with the black codes, the number one job of enforcing black codes before 1954 is to instill fear in the black community. That's the job of police. So police don't know what they're doing here from 54 to 64. 64 Civil Rights Act says you can't discriminate against people based on their skin color. The prison industry drops. The prison industry dips. Then, right here, in 68, the reason why the prison industry takes off like a rocket, that stick right there, is because then you allow cops just to be suspicious of anybody they want. Whoever they say they're suspicious of.
That's Terry v. Ohio.
Right. So
Terry v. Ohio is born, and then that's when the prison system, that's when it increases. That's when an influx of people are put in the prison system.
So what's the Terry v. Ohio case about? Can cops grab you if they're suspicious? You have a Fourth Amendment right to be free in your person against unreasonable seizures. So that's the whole crux of the Terry case is cop sees you. He says, I'm suspicious of Andre. He has now the right, because of Terry v. Ohio, to run up and grab you.
So so because of Terry v. Ohio, he can detain you?
He can grab. Well, so what does detainment mean?
Right. That's what I'm asking.
Detainment means get on your knees, bitch.
Right. I'm
going to put my knees in your neck. Now a guy who's spent my whole life teaching, fighting, wrestling, grappling, MMA, and now I got to break myself like a bitch? No, I don't. And that's the whole problem for me. And I watched yesterday another guy get put in handcuffs and they let him go. The moment you put your mitts on me, I don't like you anymore. You want to put your mitts on me and get into a cage? Let's do it. You want to put your mitts on me and dominate me because you're using the law? I hate you. So that's the Terry v. Ohio case. Before Terry v. Ohio, cops didn't have the right to grab you. Now, because black people could have guns in the 60s, Terry v. Ohio was based on race. It was based on black people being grabbed. There's a small little caveat here that the viewers have to understand. It's not just the cops can grab you and see if you have a weapon. That was in 68. Light pat down. That was the rules of the Terry v. Ohio in 68. But once the policy of officer safety being more important than your civil liberties, then detainment became a POW style of arrest. Upon suspicion of you, I can put my gun to your head and make you get on your knees. What? Yeah, I'm suspicious, and because it's about officer safety, I'm scared. That's all they have to say is I'm scared. So now I explained this yesterday, and it's a bit of a revelation for me. So I'm going to explain it on your show. Mm-hmm. Our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, you can put it up if you want. I'll send it to you. It says that you are to be free in your person against unreasonable searches and seizures. A seizure, just so you know, is your death. If your dog dies by the cops, that's called a seizure. If the cops kill your cat, your monkey, your bird, that's a seizure. So you being killed by the police is a seizure, just so you know. That's a technical legal terminology. So now, what Terry did is it changed the Fourth Amendment to now include officer safety being paramount. And I can prove it. I can prove it because these two cases prove my point. Wilson versus Arkansas, Breonna Taylor. Tennessee versus Garner, Jacob Blake, Anthony Alvarez. These cases both of them say the same thing, essentially. Tennessee versus Garner says it's unconstitutional for police to shoot you in the back of the head when you're running away. What happens when the cops shoot you in the back of the head? You die. It's called a seizure. It's important. Everything ties together. So Tennessee versus Garner says cops cannot seize you as you're running away unless it's in the name of officer safety. Really, cops can't shoot you in the back as you run unless it's in the name of officer safety. So that means the Fourth Amendment has been fundamentally changed. You have a right to be secure in your person as long as officer safety isn't in question. You have a right to be secure in your home, Wilson versus Arkansas, and cops, the Supreme Court rules it's unconstitutional for cops to no-knock raid you. It's against your constitutional rights, unless it's for officer safety. What the fuck are we talking about here? Cops can raid me or shoot me if it's for their safety? How does that align with my rights in any reasonable way? Because you had all white Supreme Court justices. You had all white men who were born in 1890, who were born during lynchings. Hugo Black, he was born in Clay County, Alabama, 1886. By 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson passes, you know, that legal racial shit. From 1886 to 1896, there were 16 lynchings in Alabama, in rural Alabama where Hugo Black lived. What did he do? He witnessed those. He went there. He saw them. Then he joined the KKK. And then they put him on the Supreme Court. He's the lead inquisitor in the Terry v. Ohio case.
In your opinion, are officers worse back then, or are they worse now? And when are they? Let me rephrase the question. Are they worse before Terry v. Ohio, or are they worse after Terry v. Ohio? In your opinion,
the worst police we have is right this minute, and the reason why I say that is because police killing people is increasing. It's not getting less. There's more and more. And they're hiding the numbers.
Do you think maybe back then, because there wasn't phones and no one was recording, that's why we weren't hearing as much of police brutality as we are hearing now? Now that we have social media, there's so much access to it. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think maybe that has something to do with it? Now social media has changed everything, hasn't it?
That's right. Well, but what we're seeing, so I'm going to give you kind of two parts to this. The first part, is that the reason that the march from Montgomery to Selma was successful is because James Reeb was murdered, the white, Princeton-educated Baptist preacher. And so when the cameras went down to Selma to Montgomery after James Reeb was murdered, Jimmy Lee Jackson was murdered at the same time period. He got a little blip in the magazine and then in the newspapers. James Reeb, front page, white, Princeton-educated. So then the cameras went down there. Once the cameras caught what Alabama police were doing to people, then the country was outraged. So what happened? Everybody saw what happened. And so everybody was outraged and said, you're John Lewis is in the hospital with a cracked skull. James Reeb is going to die in the hospital. Cops are shooting Jimmy Lee Jackson in broad daylight. Now fast forward to today. Go back to 1992, 1993. Rodney King is beaten badly. They're hitting him with sticks like he's like this rabid psychopath killer on the loose. We get to see it. What's the difference between the videos we see from Rodney King in 93 to the videos in 2021? Nothing. They're the same videos. They're just closer because of body cam. Why did the cops get away with it? Because of the laws created by the Supreme Court. If we want to change things, we have to embrace the digital era. We have to embrace cops filming us. Police have to now get defensive weaponry, bulletproof vests and things like that. And when you go to a call where there's violence, don't get involved. Just film it. If those people are truly mentally ill, where they don't realize that you're acting out of order and the judge is going to hammer you, we don't want them in society anyway. Two guys fist fighting on the street, the police shouldn't get involved. Quarantine them, put them in a square, let them go. One guy kills another guy, you guys did this. we have this idea that the police are going to come in and help or solve things, and they're not. If cops show up, it's going to get far worse. You and I have to embrace the digital era. We can film police on the street. They can film us. Police need to move to digital detainment. They come up, hey, boom, hey, yo, gotcha. Hey, man, you're being detained. There was a robbery over here. If you run off, I'm going to show the judge. We're going to put this on social media. We're going to find you. You're going to come outside. We're going to be standing there, right? But that's not what they do. You're going to show me ID now. What?
I think some of the worst interactions that I've seen are when the person is mentally ill. The way officers treat the mentally ill. I think that is, it's like they have no training at whatsoever. They just make the situation, like you said, way, 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 way worse. And, for instance, I saw a woman, her name is Karen Gardner, I want to say, from the Loveland Police Department. I don't know if you've heard about this. She allegedly had shoplifted or attempted to shoplift. So they had called the police, the Loveland police. They show up. She's walking down the street on the side of the road, and she has flowers in her hand. She's a much older woman. Have you seen this video?
I saw you produced a thing. I saw the whole thing.
Right. And so she's just walking down. And so what the officers end up doing is they tell her to stop. And if she's obviously mentally ill. She's fragile. She weighs like 80 pounds, Yeah. And the way they throw her to the ground and brutalize this woman, I think they dislocate her shoulder. It's awful to see. And this is a department that has a history of doing this with multiple other victims. I think when I see that stuff like that, I'm truly just so disheartened, and that is the type of stuff where I definitely think that police had no business going to these types of calls. Have no business.
Power is this funny drug. It's not GHB. It's not marijuana. It's not cocaine. Power is this drug that completely inundates you in every way. If you have ever been in charge of any big production or in charge of any big event or in charge of anything big, right? The first few times I got power, the first few times an investor gave me hundreds of thousands of dollars and said, here's your money, dude, go for it, right? The first time I got power, I was awful. I have regrets for my regrets. I have embarrassment for the embarrassment I feel for the first time I acted when I got my first chunk of wallet, where I had hundreds of thousands of bucks I could spend in any direction I wanted. I could hire and fire anybody I wanted. And let me just tell you, to anybody who worked with me in that first time I got that chunk of money, so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't understand that I had been corrupted because I had believed that I was something more than I was, because I had gotten a few $100,000 from investors, right? So now imagine this though. I don't have money for a production with investors and doing a TV show. The power I have is over you. And I have ultimate power over you. There is no checks and balances. There's no one who's going to look over me. And the people who are going to look over me are going to laugh, joke, or contribute to any kind of tyrannical evil that I might do. The people who saw what she did joined in. The people who saw what the guy did joined in. And then later, because they knew that there was no checks and balances, there's no third party. There was no third party, right? I don't even know how we even got the body cam footage, right? Because typically what they do is they withhold that body cam footage.
Yeah.
And then after a few years passes, they release it. No, we already dealt with that officer retired. And so what we're dealing with is a totally corrupt system. From the stop until the investigation, until the outcome of the punishment. There's no third party. The Mullen Commission, I talk about the 3 police commissions all the time. It says they need a third party, external third party. It says it all through the commission.
So just to give a clarification, what are these commissions? So just to give clarification, some context.
So there's 3 police commissions throughout the history of America. Mm-hmm. There won't be another, just so you know.
There won't be, you said?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. The police won't allow it. They have the power because there's no checks on them. Hoover orders the Wickersham. Remember, the FBI is formed in 1924 because the main runners of alcohol are cops. the main corruption in all of alcohol is police. So the Wickersham Commission is a 3-year study on policing that they say police are completely lawless. And that comes out in 1931, 1932. It comes out in multiple volumes. You won't be able to read all the Wickersham Commission. I have some excerpts you can read of it, but if you want to read the Bible 3 times, then that's what's like reading the Wickersham. So then the Knapp Commission comes out in 1972, ordered by Richard Nixon. Certainly not a snowflake.
Yeah.
And the Knapp Commission finds out that a guy named Serpico testifies that all cops are completely corrupted. All. And the corruption is so bad in the Knapp Commission that if you are a good cop, either you better shut the fuck up or you better fall in line, but you better not say anything. Because if you do, you'll get ran out. They'll put a dead rat on your windshield. That's what it is. So then fast forward 20 years to the Mullen Commission, 1994, and the beginning of the top of the page says, we have the momentum to change things. Are we going to let this opportunity slip by? And that's the quote from the Mullen Commission of 1972 from the Knapp Commission of 72, quoted in the Knapp Commission of 94, that says we need an external third party, that there is no anti-corruption, that internal affairs is a joke. This is the 94 Mullen Commission. If you talk to a cop today, they'll tell you how internal affairs, man, they're garbage. They're complicit. They're complicit. They're with it. So if you haven't read the 3 police commissions, I give them to people every day. And when I send people the commissions, I then have to go back and resend the permissions to open them. You know how Google Drive works?
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, send me the commissions, I have to deal with you twice to get you the commissions. I'll do it. Because once you read the Mullen Commission, you will have a totally different perspective on police. If your brother's a cop or your dad's a cop or your best friend's a cop, if you haven't read the Mullen Commission, you don't know a damn thing about policing. You know nothing. You know less than nothing. Matter of fact, you know wrong information. You took a ride along and your best friend's a cop, and so this is what policing is. You didn't read the internal documentation that says what they really are. And this gives me a nice caveat here, and I wonder, but it's all right.
You know, let me ask you another question. Reform or defund?
So the defund terminology is misleading.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I say defund, what I'm talking about is fund a third-party agency that films and records cops, that has subpoena power and arresting power, and their job is to work in opposition of the cops.
So allocate funds to another third party, not necessarily take away, not dismantle it completely. Because some people, when they say defund, they do mean that take away cops and then restart from the beginning.
I would love to.
So I guess
white
some of both, maybe you agree with that, but you know that that's not possible. Would that be possible to completely disband? Right. It just wouldn't be plausible, I don't think. So the next best thing would be to reallocate funds.
Right. And that's not happening. Joe Biden just gave cops more money than they've ever had ever.
So, but Joe Biden, didn't he run with the didn't he run with it with a promise that he would make things better in policing? Wasn't that one of his?
No, he made no promises.
He made no promises. I just assume because people they when they think of police accountability and they think of that aspect of it, they think that Donald Trump is probably against it. Do you know where I'm going with this? And some believe that the Democrats are helping in some way in policing in America. And in your experience or your research, what have you found between Democrats or Republicans? Does it matter what party you're from and whether or not you believe in police accountability?
No. Matter of fact, I made a video, and it's I can't remember the name of it, but I posted it. It's about the U.S. presidents, and it's a 27-minute video or 29-minute video, and it shows the history of the presidents going back to Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter, and it shows the prison population. And each president, each one since the beginning, has added to the prison population. Joe Biden is a total authoritarian, racist piece of garbage. If you buy into the duopoly, you probably will have a hard time listening to me, because I think that they're garbage. Both the Republicans and Democrats are garbage.
So why is it that people that voted for Biden, why do they believe? Because I think I've talked to several people and they're like, well, he's a Democrat. hopefully he's going to, make some change within, policing in America. They're going to have the George Floyd Act, and that's going to help us. And so you hear all of this fluff, but you're saying that it's just fluff. They're really neither party is willing to really make any changes. And in fact, they've made it worse.
The lies. It's all lies. Well, Joe Biden, first of all, didn't make any promises other than he wasn't Trump. And Joe Biden, in my perspective, didn't win the presidency. Trump lost the presidency because people were just sick of listening to him. I'd rather have a inept drone who's being puppeted like Biden than listen to Trump tweet every day about who he hates, or making fun of someone and saying they're fat and ugly or stupid, or pulling some racist thing where the entire country ignites because we no longer accept racism. The guys who in their 70s and 80s, it's too bad you guys are going to live 20 more years because your time is done. Your time is over. My uncle in Colombia, I love my uncle dearly. His ideas and his positioning on gay people and on black people is over. You're openly discrimination against gay people, and your open discrimination against black people no longer is acceptable. I'm not saying that's my uncle. I'm saying that he has views that are not acceptable. I'm not saying I just kept talking as I was tying that to my uncle. No, what I'm saying is his views, his boomer views, the idea that making a tongue-in-cheek black joke or a tongue-in-cheek, you're a FAG, that's no longer cool. It's just no longer funny. It's no longer like, okay. And until this boomer generation dies, we're in trouble. We're in trouble because the boomer generation goes back to Marbury versus Madison. The boomer generation is all the judges. The federal judges and Supreme Court judges are appointed. So you have boomers who are authoritarian garbage men who believe that if you get in trouble, the best way to help you is to put you in a dungeon. It makes things far worse. The guy who kills his wife is the one who didn't sit down with someone to talk. And instead he sat in a dungeon and just steamed that she called the cops. The bitch called the cops on me, right? Whether he's the abuser or not, you spend time in the dungeon and you start to think sinister shit. 100% for sure. So it's getting far worse. And here's the part that really burns me up. People who support Joe Biden and people who support Donald Trump. What are you buying into? What have you sold your soul to? That you have to buy all of these ideologies, and if you don't, you're out. If you're pro-choice, you're out of the Republican Party. If you're pro-Second Amendment, you're out of the Liberal Party, the Democrat Party. So I'm a fierce independent. I haven't voted for a Democrat or Republican since 2008. And then in 2009, I started a petition that Barack Obama should be tried for war crimes because he was droning to death hundreds of thousands.
I don't know if you've seen that documentary. It's called Dirty Wars. Have you seen that documentary? It is such an amazing job. It's a journalist, an investigative journalist. He actually talks to the families, like you just said, where Obama directly ordered drone strikes against some American citizens, even though they had ties to, I believe, the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or whatever during the time. The fact that they had no due process to even have their time in court is the main problem here, the main issue. And so you bringing it up, I'm glad you did, because that's a real thing. It really did happen. Obama did order these drone strikes.
For black people who support Obama or white people who support Obama, you really just don't know what he did. That's all.
Yeah.
And you can, and I get these dyed-in-the-wool people who are like, I support Obama. Yesterday I had someone say, I'm not following you anymore. Leave. Because I don't support people who murder people. Right. I'm not about murder. And Obama murdered lots of people. He may talk smooth and he may seem like a nice guy. He's really, really not very strong at all. And instead of taking the route of letting the biggest company fails in a capitalistic system, he bailed out the richest people, which is only a few people. It wasn't like he bailed out and saved a bunch of people. He didn't. He saved the super elites who paid for his election. That's what he did. And so there's no way you can respect a duopoly. You go back to Reagan, there's not been a good president, a decent president since Carter, and Carter had his own issues. So it's like,
I mean, some people even say Carter was one of the worst presidents.
he was inept, didn't have a backbone. He wasn't strong. He didn't push back against the racism that had inundated our country after Nixon and Gerald Ford. He didn't do what he needed to do to really push back and say, you know what? Reconstruction was ended. Terry v. Ohio ended any sort of moving forward of non-discrimination. Because, look, I showed you the prison system. Terry v. Ohio creates this any cop can be suspicious, and they're always investigating. They're always investigating. It created like I just said, there's a cop video out right now. I'll share it with you, where the cop teaches other cops building reasonable, articulable suspicion.
Crazy.
Building my suspicion on you so that I can hem you up. Not that you broke the law and someone testified against you, that I'm trying to build up suspicion against you.
How to arrest somebody and win in court, basically.
How to get somebody into the courtroom. And this cop is so dumb.
Yeah.
He's so dumb. His name's Street Patrol or something like that. I'll text it. I'll text you. He's so dumb. He doesn't realize, as he's sitting there laying this stuff out, he's laying out what an authoritarian police state is. His name is Street Patrol or something like that. He literally, when you hear him talk, he'll go like this. He'll go, yeah, in New Jersey, we got these DUI laws, and I was doing these DUI checks, and for a long time, I didn't even know what the law was. Like, what'd you just say? Like, he's so dumb. And these are the people we hire to be cops. And there's no one overseeing the dumb guy. He's willing to follow orders. He's willing to hurt other people. So just give him a gun and let him just go. We need to disarm all these disgusting animals. We have to disarm all of them. Cops don't show up Johnny on the spot and shoot the bad guy. That doesn't happen.
What countries do you see right now that are doing it much, much better than the United States in terms of policing?
Oh, you can't even compare us to anybody else. And the reason why there's no comparison is because we're land of the free, home of the brave, and we have more people in prison than China, India, and Russia combined. And those are authoritarian communist states. So people are like, oh, you're a communist. Dude, you're less likely to live in a dungeon if you live in a communist state. And I'm not pro-communist.
That's such an incredible, that's so insane to think about. But that's so true, yeah.
Anybody. Because remember, our entire policing apparatus is based on making sure that you arrest and hurt Black people. The entire system was created to terrorize Black people. The entire policing system. Remember, I just did a story the other day about Trey Deshaun Christie in North Carolina in Durham. I'm not sure if you saw this or not. They sent an attack dog after him when he stole a bike. There's a video of him stealing the bike. He's 21 years old. He lives in Durham, North Carolina. He's lived there his whole life. The cops know him when he scammed someone for a cell phone last year. So he went to a guy's house, broke into their shed, breaking and entering, right? And then he stole the guy's bike. They charged him with 7 felonies for stealing a bike. And then they tracked him with the dog. And then they sent the dog in the woods after him. I can show you a picture of the dog, ferocious. They say he shot the dog and the dog's injured. They can't find the gun, but they charged him with shooting a dog. Why'd you send an attack dog after a 21-year-old kid who you know where he lives?
So you're saying that he did have a gun?
They didn't find the gun.
But they're saying that he shot the dog.
Right. They're saying he shot the dog and the dog is badly injured. It's going through rehabilitation. All of the news articles only push that the dog was hurt and they need to really make sure. And then they push the cops' narrative. I really wish he had gotten more time in prison. That was all of the news articles.
That's the devil. Let me play the devil's advocate here. Some people will say, well, he got what was coming towards him because, I mean, he's stealing someone's property. So he deserves a little bit of punishment. So I'm glad that he got mauled by this dog. What would you say to those individuals?
Okay, sure. So let's play out your way. I'm going to go all the way with you, dude. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck him. He stole a bike on camera. A year earlier, he sold a phone on Craigslist, got the money, and then never delivered the phone. This kid is awful. Okay, so he's a petty criminal, breaking into storages and scamming you for a phone. 21 years old, good looking, by the way, an attractive young man. And so now you sent an attack dog after him, and now you're going to put him in a dungeon. Okay. So he was misguided doing petty crimes because he didn't have any money and he had no guidance. He had no education, that this is the wrong way to do it. So now you put him in a dungeon for 3 years. And now when he gets out, does he kill your son? You just put him in a dungeon for 3 years where they treated him like shit. He already doesn't have a family environment. There's no role model father. There's no mom who's not an alcoholic. He has nothing going for him. And now that you put him in a dungeon and had a dog attack him, now he's got bite marks all over his arms, so he doesn't look really presentable anymore. His finger's a little funny from the dog bite that tweaked his thumb, this pinky. And now when he gets out, he got raped in prison. He's got a real edge on him. And so because he was abused for 3 years, now when he gets out, when he sees your daughter walking down the street, he remembers getting raped in prison. And you know what? That entitled bitch should have to feel what he felt. Is that what you want? Because that's what happens next. Next, the guy who stole the bike out of the storage, who broke into the garage and stole the bike, this time he goes to 7-Eleven with a gun in her face. This time he kicks the pregnant woman in the stomach and runs. So now let's play that one out. Guy robs a 7-Eleven, puts a gun to the stomach of a pregnant woman, pistol whips the clerk, takes $22, kicks the pregnant woman in the stomach, trying to kill the baby, and takes off running down the road. They get him. 10 years in prison, hard labor, prison camp. Great. He was already super violent, already super prone to violence. Now you put him in a dungeon with a bunch of other antisocial people who have criminal tendencies because of their upbringing. And now that guy he's going to get out. He didn't kill anybody. He's going to get out. Now he learned this thing called power in prison. He worked his way up his gang, and now he's got power. But now he knows other guys who are really bad too. He's spent 10 years in there. And now when he gets out and he's 35, 40, he's got a felony on him. He can't get a job anywhere, can't get a student loan, can't go on a movie lot, can't go on a school campus. Now he sees you pull into your house with your Range Rover. He watches you go in there all the time, 6 a.m., back to 6 p.m., 6 a.m., 6 p.m. He watches the gate close. He's like, I could just walk right through that gate right there. Call a couple of my boys from the prison, walk right in there, and this guy's got to have a safe in there somewhere. You didn't educate him. You didn't teach him that what he did was wrong. You didn't put him in group counseling every night with 10 other antisocials. You didn't pair him off with one person, 2 people, 3. Monitor it, see who he makes a bond with, and then enforce that bond and enhance that bond. You put him in a dungeon for 10 years, all relationships with the opposite sex came to an end. He doesn't know how to walk in the same pace as a woman. He doesn't know all of these cultural standards that you don't go, hey, baby, nice ass. You don't say that anymore. But he's been in a dungeon for 10 years. He didn't learn that. He's not on Facebook. He didn't get the memo. So when he gets out of prison, he walks up to 7-Eleven, girl walks by, he goes, hey, baby, nice ass. And she takes a video of him and said, this pig. She puts him on Twitter. Now everyone in the area thinks he's a pervert. What have you created? You've created a system where a man cannot function. And if he can't function in that system, what's the next step? Anger, detachment. And once you have anger and detachment, then I watch the guy who goes in his house in the Range Rover. He goes in there every day. He's got a Range Rover. I saw his wife. He's got to have money in there. I can't get a job anywhere. I'm still an antisocial. I never learned that my real issue was my mother. I never learned that my real issue was the sexual abuse from my father. I never learned that my antisocial behavior comes from me having fetal alcohol syndrome. Because once a counselor told me when I was 15, he said, Chili, you're a foster kid. You had drugs and alcohol before you were 12. You've been arrested by the police before 15. He said, 99 percentile, just so you know, when I come and visit you in the lower 48, when you're 30 or 40, I'll come visit you when you're in prison. I said, what'd you just say? He said, Chili, you're an antisocial, done alcohol and drugs, been arrested, you live in a foster home. You are 99th percentile of people who go to prison. If he hadn't told me that, I'd be in prison today. the information he gave me taught me that then I got arrested for shoplifting at 18 because I could just do this, right? There's no boundaries to me, right? I'm an antisocial. I'll do what I want. I get arrested. I'm in a jail. I realize what he said. I'm going to go to prison. I'm an antisocial who was in foster care, that was arrested, that did alcohol and drugs before 15. I'm going to end up in a prison cell. I sat in that jail and I said, I'm going to change. I know that I don't agree with most people. I know that I like to fight. I know that. So what I'm going to do from now on, because I don't want to make his prophecy come true, every time I do anything, I'm going to ask one question of myself. And it's going to be a resounding question I ask to this day. Can I go to jail for this? And if the answer is yes, I'm out. Hey, we're going over. I'm not going. Hey, we're going to jump the fence. I'm not jumping that fence. Hey, no, I'm not. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. Because you don't get caught, but I do. And then when the cops come up to me, I tell them to go pound sand. And then they abuse me. And then I go to a dungeon. So
it seems like just a never-ending cycle that pretty much jails are designed to. Jails just make things worse, right? For people that don't come from very good backgrounds, you don't have parents, don't have any money. It seems that there's no prospect for their future. They resort out of desperation, maybe they resort to petty crimes. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but basically what you're saying is once they're put in the prison system, it's very difficult to get out of it.
Well, I mean, you just go, remember, I'm dumb, right? I'm a jock, I'm an idiot, I'm all these things. Go back to the John Locke philosophy. Show me the character of a man and I'll show you how much education he has. You just keep reading. You just keep on watching YouTube podcasts. You just keep on taking information into your brain. And eventually your brain will create pathways that you didn't know existed. And so, it happened to me. And so the system is set up now because of Reagan and the for-profit prison industry, that there's someone on the other side writing legislation of what is arrestable and what is not. And the person writing that legislation isn't an elected legislator. It's an executive for Civic Corps, the for-profit prison industry, which is why I was arrested in 1998 for riding a jet ski. The for-profit prison industry had written the legislation in the Texas legislature when I was living in Dallas. And when the cops pulled me over for riding a jet ski after dark, it didn't pull me over. I just pulled in. I just did one little Brody because the sun was setting. I thought it was beautiful. And the cop said, give me your ID. And then he arrested me immediately. I said, what am I being arrested for? He said, you rode a jet ski after dark. I said, okay, give me a ticket. He said, no, it's arrestable. And then years later, I would research that in 98, 97, the for-profit prison industry not only funded the Republican legislatures in Texas, they funded the Democratic legislatures. Wow. So the Democrats and the Republicans both said, of course, let's just sign this bill right here that says these are the things that are arrestable. One of those things listed was riding your jet ski after dark. So I went to a dungeon for 3 days.
What's really interesting is what's really scary, actually, is that there's so many laws on the books that a lot of officers don't even know the laws. Well, in general, cops don't even know their basic laws, but there are so many laws on the books. Basically, isn't it true that some of these laws are so old, in fact, that no officer even charges you for any of these crimes? It seems to me that riding your jet ski after dark would be one of those crazy laws that people have. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you have a YouTube channel called Delete Laws with a Z. And on that YouTube channel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you created it for stupid laws such as riding your jet ski at night, correct? Is that, if you could elaborate a little bit on that YouTube channel that you have?
Yeah, so I'm always battling funding. Like we all are. It's a capitalistic system. I'm always battling funding. Mm-hmm. So the idea of the website Delete Laws with a Z was so that people could post on there the dumbest law they knew in their city or town, and then we could have votes on those and eventually start to chip away the stupidest laws to try to get to the bigger laws. And that was Jeff Lloyd's idea. Jeff Lloyd's my investor who got me this office space initially. Mm-hmm. And so Delete Laws specifically what we're talking about is deleting stupid laws. Jaywalking, for example, should be removed. If you walk out in the street and you break up traffic, you're disturbing the peace, or you are disorderly conduct. If you create a law that says if you step in the street and the light's not green, then you're going to have a cop who's going to arrest someone for that. And that's Chinedeo Okobi, Chinedu Okobi, Okobi. Chinedeo Okobi crossed the street, and they murdered him for it. The cops murdered him like a bunch of savage dogs. Chinedeo Okobi, I cried for days. If you create a law, a cop will enforce it. I don't know which one will enforce it, but there will be a cop who will enforce that law on you. And so then you start to get into this Stanford experiment. And I tell people all the time, we are living out in real life the Stanford experiment. We're the cops, we're the good guys, we take you to a dungeon, and that's the game.
What is the Stanford experiment, if you could just give a little bit of context?
Okay, so if you guys haven't seen the Stanford experiment, I believe it was in the 1980s, maybe 79 or somewhere in there, 81. And what they did is they took a group of people, students, and they created prisoners and guards. That's the whole Stanford experiment.
So half the students were prisoners, half the students were guards, basically.
Right. If you went to the school, they put up an ad, and then people applied to do the role play game called the Stanford experiment. And in the basement of the sociological building in Stanford, they emptied it all out and created a prison. Cages, bars, you could lock them in this room. You know, they did all these cool things to try to create this role play factor. And then they filmed it. They filmed the different aspects of it and took testimony after things happened. It wasn't long, 24 hours, 48 hours, before the people who had taken the role of prisoner or taken the role of guard, and those people started to literally act out that scenario. And I have a really funny parallel here, but so what happened was the prison guards became worse and worse and worse because there was no checks and balances. There was no check on the power that the guards had over the other prisoners who were just students. They were just students. They had to go check in to go to this thing. And then once they checked in, they got locked in a room. And then the students were like, let me the fuck out. And the guard's like, no. So then eventually a student escaped, went to campus police and said, we're being held prisoner. So then the cops went there and they said, what the fuck is this? And it all got broken up. But the experiment had been done that says when you give someone a role of being in charge of another human and the other human knows that another person's in charge of them, your physiology, your brain, you start to act in that role. You start to act in that role. It is.
There's this human nature.
Right. There, I just saw an experiment yesterday on TikTok where they had a guy and it was an experiment. And they replicated the same experiment dozens and dozens of times. They showed a group of people, but there was only one person they were showing. The other 6 people were all actors. And they showed them 5 lines on a wall. And they said, which line is different? And you could clearly see that line 2 is shorter than the other lines. It's just easy. And so the guy they're doing the experiment to, he'd go line 2. And the other ones would go line 3, line 3, line 3, line 3. And what the fuck? Right? So then the second time they show him another group of lines. And they go line 3, line 3. And they get to the guy and he's like, line 2? And they all look at him like, oh, dude. But he's right. The next time they show 5 lines, line 3, line 3, line 3, he goes, line 3. So it just shows that we are so programmed. You guys have all seen the monkey experiment where they climb the ladder and get a cherry or a cucumber, right? It's the same thing. And so now we've created this cops and robbers culture. All the cop shows are the cops are the good guys. And that's what we see when we get programmed, which is why I want to get a Netflix series, a Hulu series.
So true. You have cops, you have Live PD, you had all these cop shows. America's Most Wanted. They're all showing cops in a very, very good light. And it's just recently with the internet and YouTube and all that where you're seeing the other side of things.
We're living a nightmare. It's a nightmare scenario. And as long as people don't talk about checks and balances and creating a third-party agency, we are screwed. As long as, because just think about every video you've made, every interview you've done where you expose a cop who beats someone up or cheats someone. I just watched your last one where the cop walks up to the guy's car door and he's like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, imagine if there was a third party there who goes, you know, if you're the cop and I'm the third party, I go, hey, what are you doing? I'm going to pull this guy over for jaywalking. No, you're not. There's no collision. No one slammed on their brakes. There's nothing going on here. The broken window policy needs to be put to bed. I don't want you investigating someone for crossing the street. I don't want that happening. So the guy gets on the radio and he goes, yeah, I got this guy jaywalking. And then the narrator goes, okay, ignore that. There's 2,000 rape kits in Texas. 2,000 rape kits sitting on a shelf in Texas. So just play that out in your head. Just play it out. Play out 2,000 rape kits on a shelf in Texas. Ready? I'm the cop. You're my assistant, right? The woman comes in. She's been raped. Oh, my God. Get her on the table. Let's examine her. The female doctor comes in, female person. They're now going to comb her pubic hairs. They're going to put a swab up in here, take her chemicals out, the chemicals in her inside of her vagina. They're going to test her hair. She's got a little scratch here. They're going to take a sample of it, see if there's any skin follicles from the other person who raped her. And the whole time I'm there, I'm going, Susie, I am so sorry this happened to you. I'm so sorry. And you're my assistant. You're the second in command. And so now we put her through this process. They're going to put a Q-tip up inside of her to get the chemicals. That is rape again, in case you didn't know that. Okay. And so then she leaves and I go, hey, Andre, just throw that on the shelf, bro. What's going on? You know, it's a he said, she said thing, you know.
So you're saying there's 2,000 rape kits just sitting there that are unsolved.
2,000. And Greg Abbott just said, Texas is the #1 rape state in America. 15,000 rapes in 2000.
No idea. Wow.
They're the #1 rape state in America. And they have 2,000 rape kits sitting on a shelf right this second.
And there's tons of videos of officers arresting people for petty crimes like jaywalking and stuff like that.
Too close. Didn't use your blinker.
Right.
And
wow.
And then we caught you for jaywalking, so let's bring in 15 other cops to back me up for this jaywalker. I mean, how many videos, Andre, do you clip together where at the end of the scene, if you would do me a favor, just take all of those, every time you clip a video and at the end there's 40 cops sitting around, just put it to the 40 cop bin. Just put a 40 cop bin. Call it a 40 cop bin. And every time you're clipping a video, like I'm clipping a video, just take the 40 cops who are standing around and just put it in that 40 cop bin. And within 2 or 3 months, you and I are going to get together and we're going to have 1,000 videos where there's 40 cops sitting around as someone's getting arrested for shoplifting or jaywalking or speeding, right? And so where's the resources going? Each one of those guys makes $50,000 to $100,000 a year. How many guys are standing around? At least 12. At least 12. So on the scene right there, you're looking at least $1.2 to $600,000 standing around. If the third party was there, you wouldn't need a bunch of third party. You would only need one Montesquieu agent to pull up there and go, what's going on? Guy was jaywalking. Okay, all you other fuckers, go back to work. I want all of you guys here to go get those rape kits, take them down to DNA Center and test them. I'm a beat cop. I don't give a shit. Take it down and test the rape kit. I don't have any experience in this. You're going to learn fast.
Now's your training day.
I got a DNA match on here. Go to his house. Go interview him. Chase the victims. Chase the victims, the people who created the victim, chase that person down. All traffic laws should be wiped off the books. It should be a total digital system. There should be cameras on every light pole in America. And if you're driving like a jackass, right, we don't need DUI checkpoints. You're driving nuts, you're driving 80 and a 50, all of a sudden 2 cars pull in, one in front of you, one behind you. You will follow these 2 cars. Exit on the side of the road, they roll down the window. You good, dude? You're doing 80. Cameras are going to trail you now. They're going to watch you. Are you drunk? No, I'm good. Okay. You're not swerving. You're fine. Okay, cool. Later. That's the whole system. You drive 80 again. This time the 2 cars pull you over. They take you out of your car. They take your car. Have a nice day.
That sounds like a dream come true. If officers, if that's how it was, if they just sent you a ticket in the mail or something like that, you never had the least amount of interactions with police, probably the better. So you're telling me the reason why you started your first TikTok ever, what was the reason?
So I went down to the George Floyd protests. And when you go down to the protests, there's thousands and thousands of people. I've known the Supreme Court information I've known for 2 decades. And when I went down there, I was interviewing and I was trying to reach as many black people as I possibly could, young black men, and trying to explain to them that Terry v. Ohio is the tip of the spear. When a cop walks up to you and says, hey, I'm investigating you without probable cause, that's a law being broken. That's called a Terry stop. At that point, your rights are being infringed upon because Terry v. Ohio is unconstitutional 100 times out of 100. Anybody who reads the Bill of Rights and then compares it to Terry v. Ohio. So I go down to interview people and I'm recording the interviews with a handheld mic. And I'm down there and I've talked to 20 black men and I've explained in detail that Terry v. Ohio is the tip of the spear, that we have to get rid of Terry to stop the touches of policing. What do police say? They want touches. Cops say they want touches. So I'm interviewing this black guy and this wafy gay guy comes by, and we have the West Hollywood gays here who are like this when they talk, and they have the very gay attributes, which is, I live in West Hollywood. I love gay people, so don't think I'm saying anything bad about gay people. But he has the very, you'll see him. He's on my video. So I don't have a TikTok account. I don't post anything on social media. I never have until this year. And so, I have previously, but just for a brief moment and delete it. I'm not real big outwardly. And so I'm interviewing this guy, and this wafy little gay guy comes by and he's like, you don't want to talk to him. I don't know what he's trying to sell you, but whatever he's trying to sell you, it's probably not good. And so I look at him and I go, this is all on my TikTok video. I go, who the fuck are you? What are you down here offering? And he goes, I don't know. I'm just marching. And he, in that millisecond, answered exactly why I was there. You don't know why you're marching. You don't know what you're asking for. So I wanted to chase him down and be like, listen, you just answered the question. You just said it correctly. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're saying you don't know why you're marching. You don't. We need to overturn Terry. In the process of me trying to chase him down and say, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, we got to overturn Terry. A girl named Amber BHE, whatever it is, she records me chasing this guy down and saying, hey, no, we live in a lawless society now. What are you talking about? She records me doing this. And then she is narrating it. Her voice is next to the camera saying, we can't even march in peace. I'm down here with white supremacists who are. Her video gets 2 million views. I don't have a TikTok account. So my hometown friends in Alaska call me and are like, dude, have you seen this video of you circulating all over the internet that calls you a white supremacist? I was like, what?
So this video goes viral. Wow.
2 million. I have videos. None of my videos are at 2 million. Not on my personal account. I have a few that are close, but not on my personal account. Some of my videos, when Hugh Duggley reposted me, that has like 4 million views or something. I don't know. But so she brands me a white supremacist. I have the whole tape though. Remember, I have a guy filming me as I'm interviewing people. So I released the whole video and I show what actually happened is that I was interviewing a young black male who would be accosted by the police in a Terry stop. And I'm trying to educate him that we have to overturn Terry. And then you can see that this gay guy comes over and like, you don't need to talk to this guy. And you can see that it pisses me off. And I go, no, dude, what are you offering, right? And then you can see that she is narrating her video, calling me a white supremacist. And then when I realize that it's kind of getting hot, getting hostile, right? I break off my pursuit and walk away. Because I just wanted to explain to him that he was correct. You don't know what you're doing here. But so then I open up a TikTok account and I post the whole video. and I don't know how to use TikTok. So I post the whole video. And then that video, I just post it and then walk away. And then I come back and that video has like 30,000 views or something. And there's a big debate going on. Very first video I posted. So then I was like, all right. And then the only reason I'm on TikTok now and filming things because I shot a documentary on Juneteenth with Auditing America from YouTube. And we didn't get to get all the things I wanted to cover on the wall. So the next day after we shot the documentary, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna explain this whole wall before it has to get taken down. I'm gonna explain everything on here because I know everything on this wall. So I just turn on my TikTok, start making videos. The second or third video I make gets 20 or 30,000 views, and then pretty soon the next day I get messages that you're trending. And so then Hugh Dudley, I don't know how to say his name properly, the comedian.
I know who you're talking about. I don't know how to say his name correctly either. I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, he's very popular. He has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram.
Yeah, he has millions on Instagram.
Well, millions, I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Real deal Dudley, real Hugh Dudley. He posted because I made this video to compare this wall to compare the lynching chart to the prison chart. So in a video, when I compare those two comparisons, like my second day on TikTok, he posted my video on his Twitter and on his.
I remember that.
And then that video got reposted in Sweden and London, and so that went all around the world. And then then my TikTok just started to just climb. So then I was like, okay, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm reaching kids who are 14, who are 15, who are going to read this stuff and go, I can change this.
You're educating them, yeah.
I made the book animated for kids. So it's a picture book. You can look at it, 5 or 6 words. It explains, this strips away your Fourth Amendment. Oh, and then at 10 or 11, they can go, wow. And that's the whole point. But that's why I opened a TikTok account. And that's why I'm here today. Because Amber called me a white supremacist.
That's an amazing story. I mean, here we are today, and right now, is that video that you're talking about? Is that posted on your YouTube channel and on TikTok right now?
It's the first video on my TikTok. It's the very first video on my TikTok.
So your TikTok, what is your TikTok handle?
Chile De Castro. My name's spelled CHILLE, and then DE Castro. DE Castro. And that's it's a nickname I got when I was a kid. Then my friends called me Chili Taco, Chalupa, all kinds of racial slurs mixed in with that. But it was all done in love. And those guys are still my friends to this day. So I love my hometown. I love my hometown friends. You know,
that's amazing.
And some of them are racist, and some of them are hardcore Trumpers and hardcore police supporters. One of my best friends back in Soldotna in Alaska, he flies a blue flag over the blue stripe flag over his front door. He has a Confederate flag in his barn, and then he has the 1776 flag. He's a homophobic and racist. He's still one of my best friends. If you cut off communication, you can no longer affect that person.
Yeah.
Remember, what was his name? Darren Williams? Darius, what was his name? He turned hundreds of KKK members to not being KKK members. You think I'm going to cut off my relationship with my racist, homophobic friend? No way. No way. If I'm making a video, because he watches what I'm doing. He watches everything I'm doing. If he might one day watch something I produce and be like, I love Chile. Man, look at his perspective. He's right. And he might change. You don't count anybody out just because they're a Trumper today. Don't count anybody out just because they support Biden today. Don't count them out. They could come back. Don't throw away your friends because of politics. Lots of publications, Forbes, lots of them said, maybe it's time to get rid of your toxic Trump friend. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Education. And that's what we've been talking about multiple times throughout this podcast is education is key. Educating the masses. And you're doing just that, going on live. You're about to go on live right after this. Yeah. You are constantly on the grind, constantly educating the masses, and I appreciate you for that. So I want to quickly change the subject here to the First Amendment auditing community. There's a community that believes in the First Amendment and always filming the police. What are your views on the First Amendment auditing community, cop watching, and who are some of your favorites if you do follow the community?
Well, first of all, just to give a general overview, the camera is the reason why we have freedom today. If there wasn't World War I and the Red Summer of 1919, then black people would have never learned how to fight. Once black men went over to World War I and came back, and 350,000 came back after serving 3 or 4 years in that war that was atrocious, they came back with a new idea that we don't have to get pushed around. And that caused the Red Summer of 1919. The reason why Martin Luther King had any success was because it was televised, because it was on camera. The reason why today George Floyd's murderer was prosecuted, I'll put it that way, I don't want to say his name, why that guy was prosecuted was because it was on camera. The First Amendment auditors of today are today's heroes. Every single person who you see with the First Amendment auditor and a Cash App or a Venmo or a PayPal, if you have $1, you should send it to that person. That person is the patriot of this country. Because, and then this kind of shifts for me a little bit into the vaccine debate. We all agree that mankind is going to live on. If there was no vaccine for COVID, mankind would live. We would live. A lot would die, but we would live. The thing is, how much of your rights are you willing to give up right now that will certainly be stripped from your children? That's what we have to look at. So you know, I don't know how I got to vaccines here, but what I'm trying to say is, now that we can see everything and everybody can see everybody and everybody's filming everything, we can see that these cops need a third-party agency that has subpoena power, arresting power, gets the body cam footage and films them. If we don't get there, it'll never get better. You can't give Einstein absolute power over another human being and him remain moral. You can't give it to me. You can't give it to you. First Amendment auditors are the heroes of our country. I would say easily my favorite is James Freeman. James Freeman is my absolute favorite.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
And then probably Auditing America. And the reason why I love Anselmo and his high, squeaky Puerto Rican voice is because I hate racism to the levels that you can't even understand. I can't stand it. It makes my blood boil. And so I know that Enrique's, his high-pitched voice like this, when he talks with an accent like this, right? I know that it drives racists just crazy. So when I listen to him talk, it's almost like an addiction. You know, this guy's talking like these to the cops. I have these rights, you know? And so it's like, I just love it. I love it. You were one of my favorite channels my whole time. Lackluster is one of my favorite channels. You know, any channel that, you know, and by the way, you know, I've spoken back and forth with Lackluster about the presentation of saying, hey, the cop has the right to do this because of these laws. You know, staying positive here, if you're going to audit videos and you're going to point out rights that cops have over us, then you make sure that you include that Terry v. Ohio was a construct of institutional racism. It was created so that cops could grab black people because of the civil rights movement. They'd already executed Black Panthers. They'd executed Malcolm X. That was the whole job of the FBI, was to disarm and kill black people who wanted their rights respected after 1954. Simple fact, simple historical fact. So if you're going to audit videos and talk about the police have the right to do this because of this Supreme Court holding, then you better include all the information. You better include that the law literally goes against our Fourth Amendment right. Officer safety is not listed in the Fourth Amendment. And so when I listen to auditors who talk about the Constitution or rights that police have over us, it makes my blood boil. When you go, the cop is perfectly within his rights to do this because of this, and you don't explain the whole story, that the Terry law you're talking about was created in the name of racism to make sure that black people couldn't have guns, The very next month, the Terry v. Ohio passes in June of 1968. The massive omnibus crime bill that includes gun legislation passes in October of 68. So now cops can grab you for their safety, and you can be arrested if you have a self-defense weapon. Not that you pulled out and shot a bunch of people or threatened anybody. If you have a gun on you, it's a crime. How the fuck did that happen? I'd like to know that. Well, you can trace down, and I have the PDF, The Racist Origins of Gun Control, one by Steve Eckwall and the other by Clayton Kramer. I have both of them that I can send to you. So I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but some of my favorites are people who, and I also listed the people who are not my favorites. If you justify police action by stating Supreme Court law that you don't do a full analysis on, I think you're really a piece of garbage. I think you're a bootlicking, authoritarian, blue stripe lover. You might as well just get blue stripe toilet paper. So you're saying
there are some auditors that aren't good at all for the community.
Oh my God.
I'm not trying to create any drama here. You don't have to name them, but
anything in me not to do an audit of their videos. When you justify police action because the cop is perfectly within his rights because of this law here, and then you don't do an analysis of that law here.
Right.
And I actually am going to do it. I've already clipped. I'll let the cat out of the bag here. Since we're talking about First Amendment auditors, some of you guys watching this, I have copied your video. I've taken the clip for fair usage, and I'm going to be doing an audit of your audit. I'm telling people now. I'm straight up. I haven't said this out loud yet, but there's at least 5 videos I've downloaded from people who did an audit and didn't explain the law properly. They give a once-over of the laws like this because of like this, but then they don't explain that law that they're talking about is based in racism. The entire bastion of the law is based in racism or big capital. You can go to the Marijuana Tax Act, 1937, for big capital, for Andrew Mellon. Andrew Mellon. I just did a 3-hour video where I explained this. When Anslinger marries Andrew Mellon's daughter, he becomes the heir to his investments. His investments are in pharmaceuticals and fossil fuels. When he dies after he passes the Tax Act, the reason why Harry Anslinger becomes possessed to create all these drug laws is to make sure that hemp can't ever get a foothold. He bans it internationally in 1961 at the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. He is the guy, and it was all done for capitalism. It was done in the guise of racism, and he did hate black people. He did hate Mexicans, but it was actually done to protect his fossil fuel industry. The year he signed the Marijuana Tax Act, he died. So he became the heir to the throne. And that's why we have all the marijuana laws. How come we can't get marijuana decriminalized today? It's the fossil fuel industry. It does not want it to compete. It's big pharma. They don't want that leaf to be discovered that it could have cancer healing benefits inside of that THC leaf. So, I'm a big, I could talk forever about history.
We've been talking now for a while now, and I guess I want to pretty much conclude our interview for today. But before I do, I want, if someone's watching this, what message do you have? They don't see anything else besides this one message that you have for them. What would you say to anybody watching, and what do you want them to know about you and about the work that you're doing?
If you want to learn one thing from me, you take one thing away from me, take away this. Carrol versus United States in 1925, based on alcohol, creates an exigent circumstances clause that the government can go around your civil liberties if there's going to be a loss of life, if the police are in hot pursuit, or to seize evidence before you destroy it, meaning dump out the bottle of alcohol. This greatly expanded police powers. Carrol versus United States. That then expands in Kerr versus California because of Harry Anslinger's work in criminalizing marijuana. Exigent circumstances are that the Kerrs are marijuana dealers. The exigent circumstances of drugs and alcohol are the reason why cops can enter into your home, into your person, for any reason they want, anytime they want. Terry v. Ohio allows them to grab you. With the exigent circumstances of drugs plus Terry versus Ohio, we're doomed. You'll never be free. You'll never be free. Graham versus Connor says cops can use any amount of objective reasonable force that they think they want on you. They walk up and they grab you because they're suspicious of you, and in that process, you die. Terry plus Graham equals death squads, LASD gangs. We have to get rid of all alcohol and drug laws immediately. Exigent circumstances do not exist. That's it. I hope that's 1 minute. I mean, we have to overturn Terry versus Ohio.
Amen to that. Thank you so much for your time and for speaking with me. And where can people find you, find your work? And I want as many people to check out your website, your YouTube channel, your TikTok, Instagram. Where else can they find you?
Chile Castro on I'm always afraid they're going to delete my TikTok account because I'm reaching so many kids. I taught 60,000 people this weekend at Chile Castro. DeleteLaws.com. Always go by DeleteLaws.com. That's my Delete Laws with the Z. And this is how I teach this gigantic visual I teach every day. I'm going to teach as soon as we get off here. I'm going to turn on TikTok Live. I'm going to teach any kids who want to listen. DeleteLaws.com, Delete Laws, and then Chile Castro 1984, 2021. They banned me. You know that. I've had to call. I had to call Andre a couple times and say, hey, I got a new account. Can you promote this account? And then he promotes my account so I can get to 1,000 followers so I can go live and teach people. Because the best way to learn something is when someone's teaching you and you can say, well, what about this? And then I go, oh, well, let me explain how the Marijuana Tax Act actually goes to the League of Nations in 1925. And then we can have that conversation. And you're right there with me. But the racists and the people who think I'm teaching CRT report my accounts and I get blocked.
That's crazy because you've had, I think, maybe 4 accounts now.
Yeah, four TikTok accounts, and now I'm down to 3. One's gone, so now I have 3 left. One has 125, the other one has 50,000, the other one's got 1,000. So I'm just trying to make sure I just go live as much as I can. The way I make a living is by selling a replica of my wall graphic. Your people could know that. It's $20. But if you don't have $20 and you want one, it's free. Just go to DeleteLaws.com, register, and be like, yo, chill, I've got $20, which 7 out of 10 people don't have an extra $20 or $30. They just don't. They need that $20 or $30. So no problem. It's a digital download for me to give to you. And then you learn something. The ebook is $10. If you don't got $10, don't let that stop you. Register on my website. I'll send it to you for free. No questions asked. I also have all those downloads. The 3 police commissions, the LaGuardia report on marijuana that's 80 years old, still relevant today. The racist origins of gun control, both copies. And check out my YouTube page, Delete Laws with a Z. Delete Laws with a Z. You'll find it.
Thank you, Chile, so much for speaking with me, guys. Like he says, I'm gonna be putting all of his social media, his website. It'll all be linked in the show notes and in the description of. If you're watching the video version of this, it'll be on YouTube as well. So if you want to be educated and you want to ask Chile any of these questions, he's available on all social media platforms, and he's willing to answer all questions. Thank you, Chile, so much for speaking with me. It is always an honor speaking with you. And until next time, because I definitely want to have you back on the podcast soon. All right?
Appreciate you, Andre. Thank you, dude. And I appreciate you.
See you. You take care.